After all the testimony, the council deliberated for 2 days. Jake's team waited nervously for the decision. Finally, Counselor Prime Zara Min announced the verdict. The Galactic Council has decided to expand the human bailiff program to all major court systems. We will also implement new guidelines for interspecies legal proceedings based on the cultural understanding protocols developed here. Jake felt relief wash over him. They had won, but the counselor continued. However, this expansion comes with conditions. Human bailiffs must undergo extensive training in alien psychology and law. They must work in partnership with alien security forces, and they must be held accountable for the actions of human defendants in their care. We accept those conditions, Jake said immediately. There is one more condition. Danny Clark will serve his sentence through community service, helping to develop new protocols for treating war trauma in all species. His experience will help us prevent future incidents. Clark nodded gratefully. I accept. I want to make up for what I did. The decision changed everything. Within 6 months, human bailiffs were working in courts across the galaxy. They brought with them new understanding of human behavior and innovative approaches to justice. Lisa became the director of interspecies cultural relations, traveling to different worlds to train alien judges and lawyers in human psychology. Her programs reduced human-related incidents by over 80%. Ryan established the Galactic Security Academy, teaching both human and alien security officers how to work together effectively. His species-neutral protocols became the standard for multi-species law enforcement. Jake was promoted to director of the Galactic Justice Integration Program. His job was to expand the Bailiff program to include other species that had trouble integrating into galactic society. The Krellians were warriors who solved disputes through combat. The Ethereals were energy beings who couldn't understand physical crimes. The hive mind species made decisions collectively and struggled with individual responsibility. Each species brought new challenges, but also new perspectives on justice and law. Danny Clark completed his rehabilitation and became a counselor for veterans suffering from interspecies trauma. His experience helped hundreds of former soldiers adapt to peacetime life. The most significant change was in the courts themselves. The old system of rigid procedures and energy barriers was replaced with flexible protocols that adapted to each species' needs. Human defendants were no longer caged like animals. They received cultural orientation before trials and had access to human advocates who could explain alien law in terms they understood, but the humans had also learned from the aliens. Earth's legal system adopted some galactic principles, like considering the long-term consequences of decisions and the importance of cultural context in justice. The program's success attracted attention from the highest levels of galactic government. The Galactic Council established the Department of Interspecies Justice, with Jake as its first director. 1 year after the hostage crisis, Jake stood in the same courthouse where everything had begun. But it looked completely different now. The energy barriers were gone. Human and alien court officers worked side by side. The holding areas were comfortable rooms where defendants could meet with cultural advisors. In courtroom 7, where Pete, Harrison had first terrified alien judges, a new trial was beginning. The defendant was Sarah Kim, a human terraforming engineer accused of violating environmental protocols. Judge Cale Nix presided, but he no longer hid behind barriers. Detective Lisa Brown sat beside him, ready to explain human motivations if needed. Sergeant Ryan Cole maintained security with a team of mixed-species officers. The defendant sat at a normal table, unrestrained, with both human and alien legal counsel. "Ms. Kim," Judge Cale Nix said, You are accused of introducing non-native organisms to the Centauri 7 ecosystem. How do you respond? Guilty, Your Honor, Sarah said clearly. But I'd like to explain why I did it. This simple exchange would have been impossible a year earlier. Now it was routine. As the trial proceeded, Jake thought about how far they had all come. The galaxy was still full of different species with different ways of thinking, but now they had tools for understanding each other. Humans were no longer seen as unpredictable monsters. They were recognized as a species that acted on strong emotions and moral convictions, sometimes without thinking through all the consequences. Aliens were no longer seen as cold oppressors by humans. They were understood as beings who valued stability and careful planning, sometimes at the cost of immediate action. Both approaches had value. Both had flaws. But together, they created a more complete understanding of justice. The human integration. Protocol became a model for bringing other species into the galactic community. The principles of cultural understanding, adaptive procedures, and shared responsibility spread throughout civilized space. Jake's final report to the Galactic Council was simple. Justice is not about treating everyone the same. It's about treating everyone fairly. Fairness requires understanding. Understanding requires patience, empathy, and the willingness to see the universe through different eyes. The report became required reading at law schools across the galaxy. 20 years later, Jake retired to a small colony world where humans and aliens lived together in peace. The courthouse there was a simple building with no barriers, no energy fields, and no fear. Young law students, both human and alien, came to interview him about the early days of interspecies justice. How did you know it would work? They always asked. Jake's answer was always the same. We didn't know. We just knew that the alternative was worse. Sometimes the biggest step forward comes from the smallest act of understanding. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still misunderstandings, still criminals from every species. But now there were also tools for dealing with these problems peacefully. And it all started with a simple question. Why do alien judges refuse to be alone with humans? The answer changed everything. Because they didn't understand us. Once they did, everything else became possible. Danny, what if you're wrong? What if these aliens aren't your enemies? Then why are they putting humans on trial? Why are they talking about executions? Because some humans broke their laws. Just like we put aliens on trial when they break our laws. Clark shook his head. It's not the same. They hate us. They think we're monsters. Jake made a desperate decision. He turned to address the alien hostages directly. This man isn't evil, he announced. He's sick. He's been hurt by war, and he can't tell the difference between enemies and innocents. But he's still human. He still has the capacity for mercy. Some of the aliens looked confused. Others seemed frightened by Jake's words. Danny, Jake continued, these beings you're holding hostage, they're just as scared as you are. They don't understand human behavior any better than you understand alien behavior. Clark lowered the detonator slightly. What are you saying? I'm saying we're all trapped by our own fears. You're afraid aliens will hurt humans. They're afraid humans will hurt aliens. Everyone is so busy being scared that nobody is trying to understand. For a moment, the courtroom was silent except for the quiet crying of alien children. Then something unexpected happened. One of the alien hostages, a small creature with blue fur and big eyes, spoke in broken English. Human, not monster. Human. Sad. Human hurt, like we hurt. Clark stared at the alien child. What? The child continued speaking in its small voice. War make everyone hurt, make everyone scared, but hurt beings can choose to stop hurting others. Jake watched as Clark's entire worldview started to crack. The aliens weren't monsters. They were just scared beings trying to survive, just like humans. I don't know what to do, Clark whispered. Start by letting these people go, Jake said. Then we'll figure out the rest together. Clark looked at the detonator in his hand. Then he looked at the alien families huddled in fear. Slowly, he set the detonator on the judge's bench and stepped away from it. I'm sorry, he said to the aliens. I'm so sorry. As the hostages were evacuated and Clark was taken into custody, Jake realized that something important had changed. The crisis had forced everyone to see past their fears and prejudices. But the real test would come later, when they had to decide what to do with Danny Clark. 3 weeks after the hostage crisis, the Galactic Justice Council held an emergency session. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy came to Kepler Station to decide the future of human participation in galactic law. Jake sat in the gallery, watching as alien leaders debated whether humans were too dangerous to remain in civilized space. The Clark incident proves our worst fears, declared Senator Vex Taller, a reptilian being from the Saurian Empire. Humans are unpredictable and violent. They cannot be trusted in our courts. Other voices joined in agreement. Many species had been frightened by news of the hostage crisis. They wanted humans banned from galactic space entirely. But then, Judge Cale Nix stood to speak. I disagree, the blue-skinned Zephyrian said. The Clark incident taught us something important. Humans are not naturally violent. They are naturally protective. The council chamber grew quiet. Judge Cale Nix had been one of the strongest voices calling for human bailiffs. His opinion carried weight. Clark was not a criminal seeking personal gain. He was a damaged soldier trying to protect his species from what he saw as a threat. His actions were wrong, but his motivations were understandable. Senator Vex Talar hissed in disagreement. Understanding does not excuse violence. No, Judge Cale Nix agreed, but it does explain it, and explanation leads to prevention. The judge activated a display showing statistics from the past 3 months. Since the Human Bailiff program began, violent incidents in our courts have decreased by 70%. Human defendants are more cooperative when they understand our procedures. Alien judges are more fair when they understand human motivations. Lisa leaned over to whisper to Jake. He's actually defending us. Jake nodded, but he was watching the faces of the other council members. Some looked convinced. Others remained suspicious. The debate continued for hours. Finally, Counselor Prime Zara Min, the elected leader of the Galactic Council, called for testimony from the participants in the Clark incident. Jake was called first. He walked to the witness platform, aware that hundreds of alien eyes were watching his every move. Commander Murphy, Counselor Prime Zara Min said, you put yourself at great risk during the hostage crisis. Why? Jake had prepared for this question. Because that's what humans do. When someone is in danger, we try to help, even when it's dangerous for us. Even when the beings in danger are not your own species. Especially then. Protecting the innocent is one of our highest values. Senator Vex Taylor leaned forward. But Clark also claimed to be protecting innocence. How do we know which humans to trust? Jake thought about this carefully. You learn to recognize the difference between protection and fear. Clark was acting out of trauma and manipulation, but even then, when he finally understood the truth, he chose to stop. What do you mean? No one forced Clark to put down that detonator. He could have killed everyone in that room. But when he realized the aliens were just scared families, not enemy soldiers, he chose mercy, the council members murmured among themselves. The concept of choice was important in galactic law. Danny Clark was brought in next, wearing simple prison clothes but no restraints. He had asked to testify in his own defense. "I know what I did was wrong," Clark said. His voice was steady but filled with regret. "I hurt innocent people because I was too damaged to see the truth." "Do you believe humans and aliens can coexist peacefully?" Counselor Prime Zaramin asked. Clark looked out at the alien council members. "I didn't before. I thought you were all enemies. But during my treatment here, I've learned about your cultures, your families, your hopes. You're not so different from us." "What changed your mind?" "The human bailiffs. Jake Murphy risked his life to save alien children from me. That's not the action of someone serving alien masters. That's the action of someone who believes all life is valuable." Lisa was called to testify about the psychological profiles she had developed for human defendants. She explained how fear, desperation, and cultural misunderstanding drove most human criminal behavior in alien courts. "We're not asking you to excuse human crimes," she said. "We're asking you to understand why humans commit them. Understanding leads to better prevention and more appropriate punishment." Ryan testified about the security improvements he had developed. Most human violence in courts comes from feeling trapped or misunderstood. When humans feel heard and respected, they cooperate willingly. The most powerful testimony came from an unexpected source. Kex 9, the small blue-furred alien child who had spoken to Clark during the hostage crisis, asked to address the council. "Human Danny was very scary," the child said in careful English. "But he was not evil. He was hurt inside, like when I broke my arm and it made me angry at everyone." The child's simple words carried more weight than all the legal arguments. "Humans feel things very strongly," Kex 9 continued. "Sometimes that makes them do bad things, but it also makes them do very good things. Human Jake saved us when he didn't have to." The first sign of trouble came at 3 in the morning. Jake woke to his communication device buzzing with an emergency alert. Someone had broken into the courthouse armory. Security footage showed a human figure, but the cameras went dark before they could get a clear image. "This is different," Ryan said when they met in the security office. "Our previous cases were about people acting out during trials. This is planned." Lisa studied the security reports. "Whoever did this knew exactly where to go. They disabled alarms, avoided most cameras, and took only specific items." "What did they take?" Jake asked. The alien security chief, a tall insectoid creature called Officer Zen, answered nervously. "Explosive compounds, electronic detonators, enough to bring down half the courthouse." Jake felt cold. "We're not dealing with a desperate defendant anymore. This is terrorism." The situation got worse when they identified the suspect. Danny Clark was a former military explosives expert facing trial for selling weapons to pirates. He had escaped from a transport ship 2 days earlier. "How did he get to the station?" Ryan asked. Officer Zen checked the records. "A cargo ship arrived yesterday. The captain claims he never saw Clark, but the ship's security was turned off during docking." Inside help, Lisa realized. Someone wanted Clark here. Jake studied Clark's file. Unlike their previous cases, this man was genuinely dangerous. He had military training, knowledge of explosives, and a history of violence during his service in colonial wars. "He's not acting out of fear or desperation," Jake said. "He's here for a reason." They found out what that reason was when Clark sent a message to every communication device in the courthouse. Attention alien oppressors and human traitors. You have 1 hour to release all human prisoners and guarantee safe passage off this station. If you refuse, I will show you what happens when you threaten humanity. Judge Cale Nix was terrified. We must evacuate the courthouse immediately. No, Jake said. If we run, it proves everything the other species believe about humans being dangerous. This ends here. But he has explosives, the judge protested, which means we need to be smart about this. Jake turned to his team. Lisa, I need you to try talking to him. Ryan, work with station security to track his location. I'll coordinate with the evacuation of non-essential personnel. The courthouse held over 200 aliens from dozens of different species. Many of them were fragile beings who could die from shock if exposed to high stress. Moving them safely would take time they didn't have. Lisa found a communication terminal and tried to contact Clark directly. Danny, this is Detective Brown. I'm human, like you. Let's talk about this. Clark's voice came back immediately. He sounded calm, which made him even more dangerous. Are you one of the bailiffs? The humans helping aliens cage our people? I'm here to make sure humans get fair trials, Lisa replied. What do you want? Justice. The aliens plan to execute every human in their custody. They're using us as examples to scare other species. Lisa exchanged glances with Jake. This wasn't true, but Clark clearly believed it. Who told you that? People who know the truth, people fighting for human freedom. Lisa realized that Clark had been manipulated by someone, but knowing that didn't make him less dangerous. Danny, I've been working in these courts for months. No humans have been executed. We've actually made things better for human defendants. Lies, Clark's voice turned angry. You're collaborating with the enemy. When they're done using you, they'll execute you too. The communication went dead. Ryan found Clark's location using thermal sensors. He was in courtroom 5, the largest chamber in the building. According to the sensors, he wasn't alone. There are life signs in there, Ryan reported. Looks like about 50 beings. Jake felt sick. Clark had taken hostages. Officer Zen confirmed their worst fears. Courtroom 5 was hearing a custody case involving families from 6 different species. Many children were present. The situation was now impossible. They couldn't storm the courtroom with children inside, but they couldn't let Clark escape with hostages either. Judge Cale Nix received another message from Clark. This time, it included video. The courtroom looked like a war zone. Clark had barricaded the doors and set up explosive devices around. The room. 50 aliens huddled together in the center, including several small children who were crying in fear. Clark himself stood behind the judge's bench, wearing military combat gear and holding a detonator in his hand. I want transport off this station for me and all human prisoners, he announced. You have 30 minutes, or everyone in this room dies. The alien hostages were in terrible condition. Several had collapsed from stress. Others were shaking so badly they could barely stand. Some of those beings could die just from being scared, Officer Zen explained. Their hearts cannot handle this level of fear. Jake made the hardest decision of his career. He activated his communicator and spoke directly to Clark. Danny, this is Commander Murphy. I'm the leader of the human bailiff team. I'm coming in to talk. Jake, no, Lisa protested. If you go in there, you become another hostage. If I don't, people will die. Children will die. Ryan grabbed Jake's arm. There has to be another way. Jake looked at his team. They had become more than just colleagues over the past months. They were family. This is what we came here for, to bridge the gap between humans and aliens. Sometimes that means putting yourself in the middle. Jake walked to courtroom 5 alone. The doors were barricaded, but Clark opened them when he saw Jake on the security monitor. Inside the courtroom, Jake saw the full horror of the situation. The alien hostages were terrified beyond anything he had ever witnessed. Some were unconscious. Others were barely breathing. Clark looked different from his file photos. His eyes were wild and his hands shook as he held the detonator. "You came," Clark said. "I didn't think you would. I'm here to talk. Let these people go, and we'll discuss your demands." Clark laughed bitterly. "These aren't people. They're aliens, the enemy." Jake moved slowly into the room, keeping his hands visible. "They're children, Danny. Some of them are just babies. Alien babies grow up to be alien adults. Adults who want to eliminate humanity." Jake realized that Clark wasn't just manipulated. He was deeply traumatized from his military service. He had fought aliens in colonial wars and couldn't see them as anything but enemies. "The war is over, Danny. These aren't soldiers. They're families." "The war is never over," Clark shouted. "You just don't see it yet. They're planning to wipe us out, one human at a time." Lisa's voice came through Jake's earpiece. "Jake, I'm reading about Clark's service record. He was at the Battle of Cygnus 7. His entire unit was killed by alien forces." Jake understood now. Clark wasn't just a criminal. He was a soldier still fighting a war that had ended years ago. "Tell me about Cygnus 7, Jake said. Clark's expression changed. The wild look in his eyes softened slightly. "We were supposed to be peacekeepers, protecting human colonists from raiders. But the aliens betrayed us. They fed information to the pirates. My squad walked into an ambush." "How many did you lose?" "All of them. 12 good soldiers. I was the only survivor." Clark's voice broke. "I watched them die and I couldn't save them." Jake began to understand. Clark wasn't trying to hurt people. He was trying to save them. In his damaged mind, he was protecting humanity from another betrayal. "You think the aliens here are planning to betray us?" "I know they are. That's why they want human bailiffs. To get close to us. To learn our weaknesses." Jake looked at the alien hostages. They were still terrified, but some of them were listening to the conversation. A few seemed to understand what was happening. Marcus Webb arrived at Kepler Station in chains. Jake watched through the security window as they brought him off the transport ship. Webb was a tall man with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He moved like someone carrying a heavy weight. "He doesn't look dangerous," Lisa said. "The most dangerous ones never do," Ryan replied. But Jake studied Webb more carefully. The man's shoulders were bent down. His eyes stayed on the floor. He looked like someone who had given up. "He looks broken," Jake said. Judge Cale Nix joined them at the window. "This is our most serious case yet. Webb's actions killed over 3,000 innocent beings. If we cannot control him, the Galactic Council may ban all humans from space." Jake felt the pressure. Everything they had worked for depended on this trial. Webb's crime seemed simple at first. He had been captain of a colony ship carrying human families to a new world. On the way, they received a distress call from an alien vessel. The ship was full of children dying from a plague. Webb made a choice. He broke quarantine protocols to help the alien children. His medical team saved most of them, but the humans on Webb's ship caught the plague and carried it to their new colony world. The plague spread to 3 alien colonies before it was stopped. 3,000 aliens died. It seems clear, Judge Cale Nix explained. Webb violated galactic law. People died because of his actions. The punishment for such crimes is execution. But Lisa saw something the aliens missed. Can I talk to him? Before the trial starts? The judge looked nervous. Is that safe? I think so. But I want to understand why he did what he did. They met. Webb in a small interview room. He sat quietly with his hands folded on the table. When Lisa entered, he looked up with tired eyes. Are you here to prepare me for trial? He asked. I'm here to listen, Lisa said. She sat across from him. Tell me what happened. Webb was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to speak. We were 3 days from our new colony when we got the distress call. An alien transport ship, carrying refugees. Their children were dying from something their doctors couldn't cure. His voice was steady, but Jake could see pain in his eyes. My medical officer said our human medicines might work on them. Different biology, but similar enough. We could save most of the children. But helping them meant breaking quarantine, Lisa said. Webb nodded. Galactic law is clear. Colony ships cannot interact with other vessels during transit. The risk of spreading disease is too high. So what did you decide? I looked at the images they sent us. Dozens of alien children, suffering. Their parents begging for help. I thought about my own children on the colony ship. Webb's hands tightened into fists. How could I let them die when I had the power to save them? Lisa understood. You chose to save the alien children. I told myself we could be careful, use protective suits, follow medical protocols. We saved 68 children, lost only 12. But your people got sick. Webb's voice broke. We thought we were safe. The alien disease seemed contained, but it mutated when it infected humans, became something new, something deadlier. Jake watched through the one-way window as Webb told his story. The man wasn't making excuses. He wasn't trying to escape punishment. He was just explaining. When we reached the colony, the plague was already spreading. I tried to maintain quarantine, but it was too late. People were panicking. Some tried to escape the planet. The disease went with them. Lisa leaned forward. Do you regret what you did? Webb met her eyes. Every day. 3,000 beings died because of my choice, but those 68 children are still alive. Their parents send me letters thanking me. I don't know if I made the right choice. After the interview, Lisa met with Jake and Ryan. He's not a criminal, she said. He's a man who made an impossible choice and has to live with the consequences. Tell that to the 3,000 dead aliens, Ryan said. That's not the point. The point is understanding why he did it. Webb isn't dangerous. He's not going to attack anyone or try to escape. He's here to face punishment for something he believes was right. Jake thought about this. So how do we handle the trial? We show the aliens what really happened. Not just the facts, but the human reasoning behind the choice. Judge Cale Nix didn't understand at first. The facts are clear. Webb broke the law. People died. What else matters? Context, Lisa explained. In human culture, saving children is one of our highest values, even when it's dangerous, even when it's against the rules. But rules exist for good reasons, the judge protested. Yes, but humans sometimes break rules for better reasons. This was a new concept for the aliens. Their societies followed rules absolutely. Breaking a law was always wrong, no matter why you did it. How can breaking a rule ever be right? Judge Cale Nix asked. Lisa thought for a moment. Let me ask you something. If a child was drowning in a sacred pond that no one was allowed to enter, what would a Zephyrian do? We would find the proper authorities, file the correct forms, get permission to enter the pond. And if the child drowned while you were filling out forms? The judge was quiet. Humans would jump in the pond first and deal with the consequences later. We can't watch children die while we follow proper procedures. This conversation changed everything. Judge Cale Nix began to understand that human actions weren't random or criminal. They followed a different kind of logic. A logic based on immediate moral choices rather than long-term planning. The trial of Marcus Webb became something new. Instead of just presenting evidence of guilt or innocence, they explored the reasoning behind human decisions. Lisa worked with alien psychologists to create a new system. Before each human trial, they would explain human culture and values to the judge and jury. They would help aliens understand why humans acted the way they did. This is not about excusing criminal behavior, Lisa explained to the court. This is about understanding it. You cannot judge a human fairly if you don't understand how humans think. Webb's trial lasted 3 weeks. The aliens learned about human concepts like sacrifice, mercy, and moral courage. They heard from the parents of the children Webb had saved. They also heard from the families of the aliens who had died from the plague. In the end, the court reached a decision that surprised everyone. Webb was guilty of breaking quarantine laws, but his actions were not criminal in intent. He had tried to save lives, not take them. The unintended consequences were tragic but not malicious. Instead of execution, Webb was sentenced to community service. He would spend 10 years helping to develop better medical protocols for interspecies contact. His experience would help prevent future tragedies. This is justice, Judge Cale Nix said after the trial. Not punishment for its own sake, but a way to make things better. Ryan developed new security protocols based on what they had learned. Instead of treating all humans as potential threats, they assessed each case individually. They looked for signs of desperation, fear, or moral conflict. Most humans aren't dangerous, Ryan explained to alien security forces. They're just scared or confused. If you understand why they're acting out, you can usually calm them down. Jake started training programs for alien judges and lawyers. They learned to recognize human emotional states and cultural motivations. They practiced asking questions that would reveal the reasoning behind human actions. Don't ask, "What did you do?" Jake taught them. Ask, "Why did you do it?" The why is more important than the what. The success of Webb's trial attracted attention from across the galaxy. Other courts requested human cultural advisors. The Galactic Justice Council began developing new guidelines for interspecies legal proceedings. But not everyone was happy with the changes. The Obsidian Syndicate was a criminal organization that operated across multiple worlds. They made money from chaos and conflict. The new understanding between humans and aliens was bad for their business. They began recruiting human criminals specifically because they knew most aliens still feared humans. If they could create more incidents like the Pete Harrison case, they could reverse all the progress that had been made. Their plan was simple: find the most unstable human criminal they could and give him the tools to create maximum chaos in a galactic courtroom. They found Danny Clark. Danny was a former military explosives expert with trauma from his service in colonial wars. He had been caught selling illegal weapons to pirates. Normally, this would mean a few years in prison, but the syndicate had other plans. They helped Danny escape from a transport ship carrying him to trial. They gave him access to advanced explosives and detailed plans of Kepler Station's courthouse. They told him that alien judges were planning to execute all human prisoners as examples. This was a lie, but Danny's military training made him paranoid and suspicious. He believed that the aliens were his enemies and that he was fighting for human survival. When Danny Clark arrived at Kepler Station, he came ready for war. Jake's team had no idea what was coming. They thought they had solved the problem of human-alien relations in the courts. They believed that understanding and communication could overcome any obstacle. They were about to learn that some problems couldn't be solved with words. Jake woke up to alarms screaming through the space station. Red lights flashed in his quarters. His communication device buzzed with urgent messages. Emergency in courtroom 7. Human defendant has broken free. All security teams respond immediately. Jake grabbed his uniform and ran to meet Lisa and Ryan. They had been on Kepler Station for only 2 days. This was supposed to be their first easy case. The defendant was Pete Harrison, the same smuggler whose escape had started this whole problem. He was back in court for a different crime. This time, Jake's team was supposed to handle him. They had made a plan. No cages, no energy barriers, just 3 humans watching 1 human. How hard could it be? Very hard, as it turned out. When they reached courtroom 7, chaos was everywhere. Alien security guards ran back and forth, shouting in languages Jake didn't understand. The judge's bench was empty. The jury box was overturned. In the center of it all stood Pete Harrison. He was a normal-looking man in his 40s with brown hair and tired eyes. He didn't look dangerous, but he held a piece of metal pipe in his hands like a weapon. "Where did he get that?" Ryan asked. A 6-legged alien security officer answered. "He broke it off the jury railing. We didn't know humans could do that." Jake studied the situation. Harrison wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He just stood in the middle of the courtroom, turning slowly to watch all the doors. He looked scared. "Everyone stay back," Jake ordered. He walked slowly toward Harrison with his hands visible and empty. "Pete, I'm Commander Murphy. I'm human, like you. Let's talk about this." Harrison's eyes focused on Jake. "You're working with them. You're helping them cage us like animals." "No cage here," Jake said. "Look around. No barriers, no energy fields, just people talking." For a moment, Harrison seemed to relax. Then Judge Cale Nix appeared at the courtroom door. His 4 blue arms moved nervously as he peered inside. "Why is he not restrained?" the judge called out. "This is very dangerous." Harrison spun toward the judge's voice. His grip tightened on the metal pipe. "See? They still think I'm a monster." "Pete, calm down," Lisa said. She had moved to Harrison's left side while Jake distracted him. "We're here to help." But Harrison was past listening. Something in his eyes changed. Jake had seen that look before in desperate people. The moment when fear turns into action. Harrison threw the pipe at Judge Cale Nix. The judge screamed and fell backward. Alien security guards rushed in from all sides. What happened next was exactly what Jake had been afraid of. Harrison didn't fight the guards. Instead, he grabbed a court clerk's datapad and smashed it on the floor. Then he kicked over a witness stand and scattered papers everywhere. "He's destroying evidence again," Lisa realized. Ryan moved in to tackle Harrison, but the smuggler was ready. He ducked under Ryan's arms and ran toward the judge's bench. His goal wasn't escape. He wanted the main court computer. "Stop him!" Judge Cale Nix shouted. Jake had a clear shot to stun Harrison with his weapon. But he hesitated. Harrison was human. Shooting him would prove everything the aliens believed about human violence. That hesitation cost them. Harrison reached the computer terminal and started pressing buttons. Alarms began blaring as legal files were deleted. Finally, Ryan got his hands on Harrison and wrestled him to the ground. But the damage was done. 3 hours of testimony were gone. Evidence files had been erased. The trial would have to start over. As alien security officers led Harrison away in restraints that glowed with energy, Judge Cale Nix approached Jake's team. "This is exactly what we were afraid of," the judge said. His voice shook with anger and fear. "You promised you could control him." Jake felt sick to his stomach. "We underestimated the situation." Underestimated? Judge Cale Nix's black eyes were wide. "He destroyed evidence while 3 trained human guards watched. If you cannot stop your own people, how can we trust any of you?" The story spread quickly through the station. Within hours, everyone knew that the human bailiffs had failed on their first case. Alien newspapers ran stories about the human problem in galactic courts. Jake found Lisa in the station's observation deck, staring out at the stars. "I should have seen it coming," she said without looking at him. "Harrison wasn't violent. He was desperate." "There's a difference." "What do you mean?" Lisa turned to face him. "In my 15 years as a cop, I've seen hundreds of desperate people. They don't attack randomly. They attack the things that threaten them most. For Harrison, that was the evidence against him." Ryan joined them, looking frustrated. "The aliens don't understand fear the way we do. Judge Cale Nix told me that Zephyrians never lie. When they're scared, they freeze. They don't fight back. So when they see a human fight, they think we're naturally violent," Jake realized. "Exactly. They can't tell the difference between a scared human and a dangerous human." Over the next few days, Jake's team studied more cases. Each one taught them something new about the gap between human and alien thinking. There was Kelly Davis, the woman who had picked quantum locks. Lisa interviewed her and learned that Kelly had been a mechanical engineer before turning to crime. She understood how things worked, so when she saw the locks, she figured out how to break them. To the aliens, this looked like impossible criminal skill. To humans, it was just problem-solving. Then there was Tony Garcia, who had turned his shoe into a weapon. Jake watched the security footage and laughed. Garcia had pulled out his shoelace and used it to trip a guard. Any human child knew that trick, but the aliens had never seen anything like it. "They think we're all criminal masterminds," Ryan said, "but we're just using common sense." The problem was bigger than Jake had thought. It wasn't just about controlling human defendants. The entire alien justice system was built for species that thought differently than humans. Judge Cale Nix explained it during their weekly meeting. "In our courts, truth is sacred. When someone is accused of a crime, they tell us what happened. If they are guilty, they accept punishment. If they are innocent, they prove it with facts. And if they're scared," Lisa asked, "scared beings tell the truth even faster. Fear makes most species more honest, not less." Jake understood now. "But fear makes humans unpredictable. We lie to protect ourselves. We fight when we're cornered. We look for escape routes even when there's nowhere to go." "Yes," the judge said, sadly. "This is why we cannot work with your people. We never know what you will do next." The worst part was the other humans on the station. Word had spread about Jake's team and their job. Some humans were angry that they were working for aliens. Others were grateful that someone was trying to help human defendants. A group of human colonists cornered Jake in the station's cafeteria. "You're selling us out," said one man, "helping them treat us like animals." "We're trying to make things better," Jake replied. By controlling your own people for alien masters? A woman asked. That's not better. That's collaboration. Jake didn't have a good answer. Maybe they were right. Maybe he was just helping aliens oppress humans. But then he met Amy Foster. Amy was a young engineer facing deportation for contaminating an alien water source. She hadn't meant to do it. She was trying to help an alien colony that was suffering from drought. But her Earth-based water purification system had chemicals that were poisonous to the aliens. I just wanted to help, Amy told Lisa during their interview. Their children were dying. I had the technology to save them. How was I supposed to know our clean water would make them sick? Amy's case showed the real problem. It wasn't about violence or lies or unpredictable behavior. It was about two completely different ways of thinking. Humans acted first and asked questions later. They saw problems and tried to fix them, even when they didn't understand all the consequences. Aliens studied everything carefully before acting. They planned for centuries and considered every possible outcome. Neither way was wrong, but they were incompatible. We need to change how this works, Jake told his team. We can't just control human defendants. We need to help aliens understand them. How? Ryan asked. By showing them that human behavior isn't random. It has reasons. We just need to explain what those reasons are. Lisa nodded. Like a translator, but for culture instead of language. Their next case would be their chance to try this new approach. But Jake didn't know that it would involve the most dangerous human criminal they had ever encountered. Marcus Webb was coming to Kepler Station, accused of violating quarantine protocols that had led to the deaths of thousands of aliens. He had been a colony ship captain, trusted with the lives of millions. Now he was the most wanted human in the galaxy, and Jake's team would be responsible for keeping him under control while aliens decided whether he deserved to die. Jake Murphy stared at the message on his screen for the third time. He rubbed his eyes and read it again. The words still seemed crazy. Commander Murphy, the Galactic Justice Council needs your help. Our judges refuse to work alone with human criminals. We need human bailiffs immediately. Jake was the head of Earth's diplomatic security. He had seen many strange requests over the years. But this one was different. Alien judges were scared of humans. They wanted humans to guard other humans in their courts. The message came from Judge Cale Nix of the Zephyrian High Court. Jake had never heard of him before. He looked up information about Zephyrians. They were blue-skinned aliens with 4 arms and big black eyes. They were known for being very smart and very calm. If Zephyrians were asking for help, something was really wrong. Jake called his best officers. Detective Lisa Brown came to his office first. She was small but tough. She had talked down hundreds of criminals over 15 years. She never lost her cool, even when people pointed guns at her. What do you think about this? Jake showed her the message. Lisa read it carefully. Alien judges are scared of humans? That's weird. What happened? I don't know yet. But they're offering good pay. Really good pay. Sergeant Ryan Cole walked in next. He was a big man with scars on his hands from his time as a Marine. Ryan had fought in 3 wars before joining the police. He knew how to handle dangerous people. You called, Commander? Ryan sat down in a chair that creaked under his weight. Jake explained the situation. Ryan listened without saying anything. When Jake finished, Ryan asked, Why do they need us? Don't they have their own security? That's what I want to find out, Jake said. Are you both interested in a trip to space? Lisa grinned. I've always wanted to see an alien city. Ryan nodded slowly. Sounds like an adventure. 3 days later, they were on a transport ship heading to Kepler Station. The station was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. It floated in space between 3 different solar systems. Ships came and went constantly, carrying people from dozens of different worlds. Jake had never seen so many different aliens in one place. There were tall, thin creatures with silver skin. Short, furry beings that walked on 6 legs. Things that looked like giant butterflies but wore clothes and carried briefcases. Judge Cale Nix met them at the docking bay. He was exactly like the pictures Jake had seen. Blue skin, 4 arms, and eyes as big as dinner plates. But he looked nervous. His hands shook when he greeted them. "Thank you for coming," the judge said. His voice was high and musical. "The situation is very bad. Very bad indeed." He led them through the station. Everything was clean and bright. The floors were made of some kind of crystal that glowed softly. The walls showed moving pictures of peaceful alien worlds. "Tell us what happened," Jake said as they walked. Judge Cale Nix's forearms moved as he talked. "3 months ago, we had our first human criminal case, a smuggler named Pete Harrison. He seemed calm at first. Our security restraints worked fine on him. They passed a group of tall, thin aliens. They whispered to each other and stared at Jake's team with worried expressions. But then something went wrong," the judge continued. "Harrison got angry during the trial. He broke our restraints like they were made of paper. It took 6 hours to catch him. He threw chairs at the jury. He scared everyone." Lisa frowned. "What kind of restraints were you using?" "Energy fields. They can hold a Kryptonian war beast. Those creatures weigh 2,000 pounds and have claws like swords." Ryan whistled. "And a human broke them?" "Not just broke them. Harrison seemed to know exactly how they worked. He found the weak spots in seconds. None of our security experts understood how he did it." They reached the courthouse. It was a massive building with towers that reached toward the stars. But Jake noticed something strange. There were very few people around. Most alien courthouses he had read about were busy places. "Where is everyone?" he asked. Judge Cale Nix looked embarrassed. "Most judges refuse to work cases with human defendants. Word spread quickly about Harrison. Now the other species think all humans are dangerous." Inside the courthouse, things looked even worse. Jake saw energy barriers everywhere. Thick walls separated the judge's bench from the rest of the courtroom. Armed guards stood at every door. "This looks like a prison, not a courthouse," Lisa said. "We had to make changes," the judge explained. "After Harrison, we had 2 more cases. A woman named Kelly Davis, who somehow picked the lock on quantum restraints, and a man called Tony Garcia, who turned his shoe into a weapon." They walked past a courtroom where a trial was happening. Jake looked through the reinforced window. A human man sat alone in a metal cage in the center of the room. The judge was so far away that Jake could barely see him. 3 different types of security robots surrounded the cage. "That's not justice," Ryan said quietly. "That's a zoo." Judge Cale Nix heard him. "We know it's wrong, but we're scared. In 15,000 years of galactic law, we never met a species like humans. You're unpredictable. You use things as weapons that we never thought could be weapons. You lie so well that our truth detectors don't work." They entered Judge Cale Nix's office. The walls were covered with pictures of peaceful alien worlds. But Jake noticed that the judge's desk was behind a force field. "Even here?" Jake pointed. "At the barrier." The judge looked ashamed. "I'm sorry. It's nothing personal, but humans make us very nervous." Lisa sat down and studied the judge carefully. "You're not just nervous. You're terrified. What aren't you telling us?" Judge Cale Nix was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated a screen on his desk. It showed security footage from the Harrison case. Jake watched a normal-looking man in handcuffs sitting calmly in a courtroom. The restraints were invisible energy fields that glowed slightly around his wrists and ankles. Then, suddenly, Harrison moved. He twisted his hands in a way that looked impossible. The energy fields sparked and died. What happened next shocked all three humans. Harrison didn't run. He didn't attack anyone. Instead, he grabbed a chair and threw it at a jury member. Not to hurt them, but to make noise. While everyone panicked, he grabbed a court recorder and smashed it against the wall. He wasn't trying to escape, Lisa realized. He was destroying evidence. "How did you know that?" Judge Cale Nix asked. "Because I've seen it before. Desperate people do desperate things. But you saw it as random violence." Ryan studied the footage. He knew exactly what he was doing. Every move had a purpose. Your security saw chaos, but there was a plan. Jake understood now. You're not scared because humans are violent. You're scared because you can't predict what we'll do. Judge Cale Nix nodded sadly. Every other species in the galaxy follows patterns. We can predict their behavior. We know what makes them angry, what makes them scared, what makes them cooperate. But humans... He gestured helplessly with all four arms. You're like watching chaos in action. So you want us to control our own people, Jake said. We want you to understand them. We want someone who can see the patterns that we miss. Someone who can tell us when a human is planning something before they do it. Lisa leaned forward. What happens if we say no? The judge was quiet for a moment. We'll have to stop accepting human defendants. Any human who commits a crime in galactic space will be sent back to Earth immediately. No trial, no chance to explain. Just deportation. Jake thought about all the humans living on alien worlds. Colonists, traders, diplomats, scientists. If they couldn't get fair trials in galactic courts, it would mean the end of human expansion into space. We'll do it, he said finally. But we do this our way. No cages, no energy barriers between judges and defendants. If you want us to control humans, you have to trust us to do it right. Judge Cale Nix looked relieved and worried at the same time. When can you start? Tomorrow, Jake said. But first we need to see more of these cases. We need to understand what we're really dealing with. As they left the courthouse, Ryan asked quietly, Are we doing the right thing? Helping aliens control our own people? Jake looked back at the building with its walls and barriers and fear. I don't know yet, but if we don't help, things will only get worse. Lisa nodded. At least this way, we have a chance to change things, make them better for everyone. None of them knew that their first case would test everything they believed about justice, loyalty, and what it meant to be human in a galaxy that didn't understand them.